Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this warm reception. I appreciate it. Toby, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here again this afternoon. And I want to thank LIBA in general for all the great work that you do. Obviously, your members here are part of the economic engine that drives the job creation here in Lincoln. And just a little bit earlier today, I had the opportunity to be a part of Huddle's ribbon cutting. And Huddle is a great example of an American success story. It was three guys in the Rake School at the University of Nebraska back in 2006. They had this idea for using software to help sports teams improve their performance. And today, Huddle, as we just said, just cut the ribbon on their headquarters here in Lincoln, but they are an international company that has over 1,000 people around the world, headquartered right here in Lincoln. And a great example of the great ingenuity that's going on in this city that helps us continue to grow. And of course, the policies that LIBA pursues helps us create that environment so companies like Huddle can be successful. So thank you very much for the work that you're all doing with regard to that. And of course, that is the mission, or the vision rather, for my administration, which is to grow Nebraska, to create those opportunities so that our young people can find those jobs like they've got going on at Huddle, to be able to keep them here in our state, and indeed attract people from around the country and around the world, like Huddle's doing, to be able to grow our state by finding that opportunity right here. And we want to create that opportunity through more effective, more efficient, and more customer-focused state government. That's our mission statement at the state of Nebraska. Now, we're looking for those opportunities in a variety of different ways, which I'm going to touch upon. And then we'll get into a little bit about a look forward into the legislative session for next year as well. Now, one of the keys is by creating that environment here, by focusing on how we can draw companies here, means we have to have a place where Nebraskans can grow and where we can attract people to come. Part of that is taxes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But another key part of that is making sure we've got an environment where we cut that red tape. We've been working on that here as well. We've got a number of the state senators that have been helping us in a variety of efforts in trying to do that. I don't actually believe Senator Moranti is here today. Senator Moranti here? But we've been working, oh, he is here. All right, great. Senator Moranti, how you doing? But we've been working, for example, on initiatives to cut the red tape, for example, by freezing all the promulgations of regulations until the agencies have had a chance to come back and take a look and see if we still need those regulations. How can we cut those out? Are they still necessary for the health, welfare, and safety of our people? Senator Moranti has also been working, for example, on cutting down the number of boards and commissions that we have here in our state. Again, looking to see how we can be more effective. Are all these things going to be needed? Senator Lowe here, I see sitting right in the front row here, has helped with, for example, cutting out some of the licensing when it comes to car dealerships. Again, things that may not be necessary anymore. We can look at those things that were important in the past, but not so anymore. Senator Geist, and I don't think Senator Hilgers is not here, is he? But Senator Hilgers introduced and Senator Geist prioritized a really key bill for our Department of Transportation to be able to take responsibility for that environmental permitting here locally, here at the state level, rather than relying on the federal officials to do it, so that we could speed up that time to be able to make sure that we could push forward our transportation projects as quickly as possible. And that's another key way to be able to cut the red tape from the federal government at this point. I see Senator Friesen's here, and we worked on providing better service to our veterans by moving our Division of Veterans Homes out of HHS and into our Department of Veterans Affairs to create a one-stop shop. So you can see there's a variety of folks who are in the room today that have helped us really figure out ways that we can be more effective to cut that regulatory red tape and make that environment where companies can expand. I'm not going to talk a lot about workforce today as well, but that's another key one as well, making sure we've got the right trained, skilled workforce. Things such as our Developing Youth Talent Initiative help with that, or our bill LB 518, which is a workforce housing bill. And again, I didn't hear Senator Williams in the crowd, but that was his bill to do that. So a variety of things to make sure we've got the right people here and that the people we have can flourish. Now, we can create this environment, but one of the things we have to do then is go out and make those connections to be able to draw those businesses in and sell. So business recruitment is an important part of that as well. We go out and we recruit companies to come to Nebraska. And we had, over the course of the past year, a lot of successes on that. Earlier this year, for example, we were able to announce that Facebook is creating a data center here in Nebraska. That's currently listed at a $300 million investment that will help us create some of those high-tech jobs. We know that Costco is coming to Fremont. That's a $300 million investment, creating about 800 jobs there, but also importantly, creating the opportunity for anywhere between 100 and 120 farmers to be able to put up poultry barns, to be able to diversify their income. So it's not only great adding great manufacturing jobs, but value-added agriculture. And speaking of value-added agriculture, Cargill is investing $111 million in Columbus, in their meat processing facility up there, supplying the taco meat to Taco Bell. And another value-added agriculture company is called Evonik, creating omega-3 fatty acids for feeding fish and so forth. That's a $200 million investment in Blair. These are all great companies that are expanding in here. And for example, we go out and make those relationships by going out and talking with those companies. We went to Facebook, went to Silicon Valley to talk to them about why they should expand here in Nebraska. And it's making those relationships that are so important that you all understand each and every day in your businesses why we do that. And we look to not only do that here domestically, but we want to do that internationally as well. 95% of the world's consumers lie outside our borders. So I've been to Japan twice, China twice, Hong Kong, Macau, the European Union, and earlier this year I went to Canada. When we go on these missions, we talk to companies there as well. For example, when we were in Canada earlier this year, I met with a company called Agriplastics, and they were looking at expanding the United States. We had made that contact about a year ago through the Department of Economic Development, and I sat down and continued to make the sale with regard to why they should choose Nebraska. And earlier this year, they announced that they are indeed going to choose Nebraska. In fact, they're going to choose Sydney to create their first expansion in the United States for their products. Again, it happens to be a product for the agricultural industry. When I was in the European Union, we met with Novozymes, that they are looking at doing an expansion both either in Nebraska or in North Carolina with regard to the ethanol industry. We met with them, and earlier this year, they announced that they were going to do their expansion here. When I was in Japan, we met with Kawasaki and reinforced that 40-year-old relationship with the city of Lincoln. And earlier this year, they announced that they were going to make a $12.5 million investment, creating about 50 jobs, by building the Boeing 777X doors. So again, a lot of this is about developing those relationships, making that contact, letting them know that when they do business here in the state of Nebraska, they will be able to find the best workforce in the world, a regulatory environment that's easy to do business with, and that when they need to talk to the people who are making the decisions, we're available to be able to do that. That's how we can continue to make these relationships where we can grow our state. And that's a great part of what we're focused on at the state of Nebraska to be able to do that. And when we can find ways to make it easier through the things we do, we can create those opportunities. And that's one of the reasons why we focused on a lot of the same things you do every day and just how we run our operations. For example, everybody in my agencies have been through Lean Six Sigma white belt training to teach them why do we do process improvement? Why do we try to do things better each and every day? Why do we treat the people we serve as customers? We've created a Center for Operational Excellence that is working with all of our agencies to create process improvement so we can do a better job serving our people. And I'll give you a couple of examples of how we do that. Nurse licensure. We all know that we have a shortage of nurses here in our state. It's true around the country. It was taking us 96 days to approve a nurse license in November of 2015. By focusing on process improvement, we cut that time down to 37 days in November of 2017. A huge improvement. We had a backlog of processing workforce tax credits. We were doing about 1,000 a month. So we improved that process, and now we're doing about 2,500 of those a month. So when we can be easier to do business with, companies will choose to do business here. When it comes to environmental permitting, for example, getting those general air construction permit so you can start your project. We were able to put that process online so we could take that process down from weeks or months to just a day or two. In fact, Yahoo was one of our first customers there. We got their permit issued to them in 2 days. And in other states on the West Coast, that can take months to get done. So being easy to do business with is how we attract companies here. So these are the things that we're focused on and how we can be more effective and more efficient. How we can open up those opportunities internationally, recruit businesses back here to be able to grow our state. And we'll keep those same things in mind as we look forward to this next legislative session. Now, this is going to be a short session. It's only going to be 60 business days, which means that it's going to go by very, very fast. There's going to be two main things that we're going to be focused on. The first is going to be the budget. Now, you may have seen that back in October, the forecasting board took an additional $200 million out of our forecast for this biennium. So we are going to have to work to close that budget hole. I've been working with my agencies to be able to make that recommendation, which we will do in January, as to how, with regard to how we do that. But it's not going to be any secret that we're going to have to control spending, continue to cut our budget. I've reiterated with my agencies that we are going to be looking at each and every hire to make sure that position is absolutely needed. And just over the course of the last year, by having that policy in place, we've reduced headcount at the state of Nebraska by nearly 500. That's about 3.5% of our workforce that we've reduced. We are also putting a hold on all those unnecessary travel that we don't have to do out of state, looking at what kind of capital expenditures we're making, what kind of software purchases. We've also taken out about 1,500 vacant positions because people weren't being hired. So we said, hey, these positions are out there and you haven't hired them, we're going to do away with those as well. And by focusing on that spending and working together with the legislature, we've done a tremendous job of slowing that growth of government. In fact, before I took over, government was growing at 6.5% a year. And folks, that's unsustainable. But by working together with the legislature, in my first budget, we cut that growth nearly in half. And in this budget, we've reduced it by 90%. This current budget is growing at 0.6%. And as I mentioned, we're going to have to go back and revisit that, so that number is going to be coming down as well. Now, folks, that's important because we have to live within our budget. Our Nebraska families do that every day. And when they see their income go down, as we've seen with our farmers and ranchers, you know, their income's been cut nearly in half since 2013. They're tightening their belts. They expect us to do the same thing. And that's what we're doing at the state of Nebraska. We're tightening our belts. That also is important because what that does is set us up for future tax relief. Because the only way to have sustainable tax relief is by controlling spending. There's no silver bullet. You just have to control spending and allow your revenues to grow faster. That's how you achieve tax relief. And so we're going to continue to be very focused on the budget as we go into this next legislative session. I've already set the expectation, again, with my agencies, expect to see further cuts. We're going to continue to constrain spending, and we're going to make sure we balance this budget. We're going to balance the budget. We're going to live within our current revenues, and I will not support any attempt to raise taxes. That is my commitment to you. Now, that leads into the next big topic, which is taxes. Now, earlier this year, we had the most comprehensive tax bill to come out of the Revenue Committee since the 1980s. Now, that bill did get stalled in the first round of debate. And since that time, Senator Smith, who's chair of the Revenue Committee, and I have been working on what other ideas we want to bring back into this next legislative session to be able to continue to work on those ideas. Now, I don't have any details to be able to share with you today with regard to that. Senator Smith and I have been talking with the various ag groups, the chambers of commerce, other folks about what sort of ideas we can bring forward to this next session. But we're not ready quite yet to be able to reveal those details because we're still trying to work out what that package will actually be. But know that we are working to really build that consensus to make a broad coalition of folks who are going to support tax relief in this next legislative session. So despite the fact that it'll be a short session, we can get to that 33 votes. And that's going to be key we got to get 33 votes, which means that everybody is going to have to compromise to some degree or another to be able to get a package that we can get those 33 votes. We've got to have that broad coalition. And so we're going to continue to work on that as we approach the end of this year and into next year to be able to make that happen. But as Kobe talked about, there's some key things there with regard to how we have to be more competitive. Kobe put up the slide about how we're the 7th highest in the nation when it comes to property taxes. USA Today, I think, ranks us 5th highest in the nation. You can look at a variety of other sources and see that we're also a high income tax state. And that's actually going to be very critical as the federal government, the U.S. Congress is looking at making their tax package, changing their tax packages. That's going to highlight the things that we see here in our state with regard to our personal income taxes and our corporate income taxes, which are also very high. So being able to address those issues will be part of what we have to do in this next legislative session. Now, to that, I also want to talk about another idea that's out there as well called the 50-50 plan. And this idea is about giving a 50% income tax credit on the property taxes you pay for your schools. And there's certainly, again, merits to the idea of looking at how we can accomplish this. But the way this current bill is set up would mean a $1.1 billion impact to our budget. And the proponents of this plan have to talk about how would we accommodate that in our budget. Because I want to put this in perspective for you. It's about 25% of our overall general fund budget. To put that in perspective, you could wipe out every one of my agencies. You could fire me, close the prisons, let all the inmates out, take the state patrol off the roads, close the Department of Revenue. Okay, wait, you might like closing the Department of Revenue because then we couldn't collect any taxes at all. But if you did all that, you get halfway there. You can defund the University of Nebraska. Take every penny that we give to the university, and you get the other half. Another alternative is you could take virtually every dollar that we give in aid to K through 12 schools. The TIOSA formula, special education, all that. Virtually every penny. And that would get you to that size of a number. Now, if you think those things are unlikely, that means you're talking about a massive tax increase to be able to pay for that. So we have to remember that whatever we do with regard to our tax plans going forward, we have to be able to make that work within the budget. There's got to be a plan for how we accommodate that. And no matter what tax plan we all get behind and support, there's got to be that vision for how we continue to make sure that we have that balanced budget. One of the things we got to remember is we didn't get into this situation overnight. Valuations on ag land have gone up 252% over the last 10 years. The property taxes paid on them have gone up 162% over 10 years. Those are big numbers. And they're certainly creating a lot of stress in our rural communities. But those numbers happened over 10 years. So we need to think about how we can achieve that tax relief and still stay within our budget so that we don't create a massive tax increase or major disruptions in how we're running our operations. That's how you do tax relief responsibly. And that will be the goal as we look into this next legislative session. How are we able to achieve that? I'm excited about the opportunities we have in front of us. I expect that we're going to see a huge economic uptick in this next year. Now that's primarily because Scott Frost is our new football coach. But we have tremendous opportunities in front of us. We are seeing that the federal government is finally moving on tax policy, which should help us be able to grow. We have tremendous strengths and opportunities right here in our state. I get so excited and optimistic when I see companies like Huddle that are expanding right here in Lincoln. We have to put the policies in place to continue to make sure that we've got a great tax environment, that we're easy to do business with, that we're cutting that red tape, we've got the right workforce here, and that we're recruiting those companies to come to Nebraska to help us grow our state. We have tremendous opportunity. The sky is the limit. We need to work together to be able to make that happen, And that's what I'm going to do in this next legislative session with the help of your state senators that are sitting around here today. We will work together to put those plans in place to continue to grow Nebraska. Thank you very much for your support in helping us put that good policy in place to be able to grow our state. We're grateful for everything that you do to help us on the policy front and what you do each and every day to create those jobs right here in our community, to make Lincoln such a wonderful place to work, live, and raise a family. God bless you in what you do. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. I hope you have a joyous and prosperous new year. And God bless the great state of Nebraska.